Hi, it's 12 o'clock and it's time to start this summer's final Siili Talks. This time we are concentrating on one sector, and it's the financial sector, and you are warmly welcome to join us for this next hour. With me in the studio we have Jarkko Malviniemi. Welcome.
Thanks. Hello.
Perhaps a short introduction.
Hi, I'm Jarkko, working as a VP Innovation at Siili, already 9 years in the house.
Good. And this time we brought the whole Siili family, so not only people from Siili, but also our new friends from Hungary are also joining us, and from their ranks we have Balázs Fónagy. Welcome, Balázs.
Hello everyone, I'm happy to be here.
And perhaps a short introduction also.
Yeah, I'm Balázs. I'm the head of product strategy and product design at Supercharge, which is a European innovation agency, and I worked a lot with enterprise clients, mostly in the financial sector. So I think I will have a few interesting words to say about our today's topic.
Really good. And last but not least, we have Kristian Valkama joining us from exotic country of Tampere. So Kristian, welcome on board, and perhaps a short introduction as well.
Thank you, Antti, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kristian, head of SKALER, Siili's internal automation powerhouse. We focus on driving business benefits with intelligent process automation, and today a few thoughts on how to harness that in your domain.
Great. Talking about the rhythm of today's presentations, we're going to have 3 separate talks for you, but all these talks will align, as you can see at the end of this hour. We're going to talk about customer experience, digital experience, and how it ties to the automation, which has been for a while and certainly is at the moment a really hot topic in the financial sector. Then we're going to talk about how to really harness and orchestrate the power of automation. So we talk about measuring it, we talk about how to arrange the functions around it, and last but not least, of course, when we talk about automation and intelligent automation, we are talking about AI, and Jarkko is going to dig a bit deeper on that one. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with Balázs's presentation, and we're going to give stage to Balázs. So the stage is yours. Hungary's time to talk.
Thank you very much. I will first of all try to share my slides. I guess I have to do that myself, right?
Yeah. We haven't been able to automate everything yet.
No worries. Just clicking a few buttons. Okay, is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. So hi everyone again, and thank you for listening. I don't need any introductions now. So right now, besides leading my team, I still work very actively together with clients on defining their digital strategies, and I do that mostly in enterprise environment, and I've been lucky enough in the recent years to participate in some very exciting projects in the financial sector. Now, these projects were ranging from retail to corporate banking, and also very often ventured into the area of beyond banking and something even more exotic. We might talk about that at the end. I find this space right now particularly exciting, as banks really did realize the importance of customer experience, mostly under the siege from various challenger banks, which right now maybe don't pose such a big business risk, but they are definitely there as a big reminder of what simplicity really means in the financial sector. My main mission is to help our large enterprise clients to create products which can compete with startup products in terms of simplicity and the clarity of value propositions. While obviously we need to have them also to leverage their very unique resources, capabilities, reach, and market penetration, already existing market penetration, which puts them into a very different situation than where startups are, or scale-ups even. And I feel that the topic of automation that I will talk about today fits very well into this theme. In an enterprise environment where there are so many moving parts, services, divisions, when we start automating and digitalizing things, it can often happen that we lose track of understanding how it really affects the customer. How will our whole holistic customer experience turn out? So I thought it would be worthwhile to dedicate around 20 minutes to this topic. How does automation really affect our customers? How can we make sure that it increases customer experience instead of actually hurting it? And this is what we'll talk about. Before we go into it deeper, let's start with a super brief history of how consumers first met with the idea of automation even. The term automation was coined in the automobile industry, I think in the 1940s. And it was coined to describe the increased use of automatic devices and controls, usually in production lines back at that time during the manufacturing processes. Actually, the word itself is attributed to an engineering manager at Ford, who was not surprisingly leading the Ford Automation Lab. So the idea comes from the automobile industry. I picked this picture because the idea of robots captured the imagination of the public already in the 60s. You might know the Jetsons family, from where this illustration is from. It was a very famous cartoon created by Hanna and Barbera. It was still popular in my childhood, even though it was already 20 years old at that point, or almost 30. Actually, this was the first program broadcasted in color on ABC. And why I thought that's an interesting trivia is because imagine that people were already dreaming about intelligent walking humanoid robots at the time when broadcasting a cartoon in color was still actually a very innovative thing. So people already had very wide imagination back then. But actually this was an era after the Second World War when humanity had huge optimism about what technology can enable. You know, this was the time when people started dreaming about flying cars and all other crazy inventions. And this optimism was not actually without reason. This was the time when machines suddenly started to pop up in everyone's homes. Before, machines were usually present in factories or in offices. Not even in offices that much, but they were very new in the homes. We are talking about household appliances like refrigerators, washing machines, toasters, and they really started to appear in every house. You can see it for yourself on this diagram about the adaptation of technologies in the United States. The numbers are highlighted are from 65, and as you can see, all these lines are steeply going upwards, showing increasing adoption. So people and cartoon creators already had very wild dreams back then, but as we know, reality unfolded very differently than the Jetson family. Most of automation in the coming decades were only focusing on factories and offices, and people didn't see much of it in their homes. So how did complex automation enter the life of consumers? Well, through software, through PCs, and recently, ultimately, in the form of smartphones. Because in the meantime, something happened that no one really expected in the 60s. As Mark Anderson put it in 2011, software started eating the bird. Now, most of us never met a robot similar to the ones in the Jetson family. Maybe, or no, most probably, you have met a vending machine or a self-driving train like the metro in Helsinki, which is, for example, a grade 4 system, but in practical terms means that it's a fully automatic robot. But whenever you ride that metro or any other self-driving train, you probably don't even realize that these are automated. Or when you do, you don't really care about it. Like these kind of machines just don't excite us the same way like a human-shaped cleaning lady would, like what you can see in the Jetson family. The most exciting robot that you can meet in your daily life is probably a Roomba vacuum cleaner. I think most of us have seen those. And I think sci-fi today really means when a Roomba mop and the Roomba vacuum cleaner is dancing around your flat in some perfect sync, communicating with each other. But this is still not really flying cars level stuff. On the other hand, automation through software is suddenly everywhere. And if you think about it, it's really changing the life of all of us. Now, when we meet with automation, usually it happens like this. You select options from an IVR system. When you use your smartphone, you set temperature schedules for our thermostat that your heating system will automatically follow. Or when you send in a loan application to your bank through their website, probably an automatic assessment process will follow. A huge part of what we see from automation happens through marketing. You get targeted email campaigns, all consumers see targeted Facebook advertisements. I think probably that's the largest scale automation we meet in the everyday life. Now, besides that, Alexa and her peers also really started to conquer, or some would say invade our homes, but we voluntarily let them invade. So we can finally ask for our favorite songs, and then hopefully the robot obediently plays it. My personal experience is that it's maybe my accent, but it rarely picks up which song I want, and it only obediently tells me that she's unable to understand me. So this technology still has a long way to go. But all of these things I talked about are all software magic and not hardware magic. And this is really not how people imagined robots in the 60s. Now, after this little primer, let's dive into something a bit more focused. And let's start to talk about how customers do feel about this huge wave of digital automation. How does it affect their experience, and how can financial brands be smart about it? So, in my presentation, I'm only concerned with how customers perceive automation. In the following presentations, you will hear about all the other sides, how it affects your business, how it affects your bottom lines, and mostly how it affects your IT capabilities. But in this presentation, we only focus on how it affects the customer experience. To start our discussion, let's define what we even call automation. Automation is the automation of business processes that were once performed by human employees. Now, even from these processes, we are only concerned with the ones that your customers can actually perceive directly or indirectly. Now, that still leaves us with lots of different forms of automation, like robotic process automation, self-care interfaces, and marketing automation. All these things can be fed by your customers. In order to start analyzing how automation can affect the customer experience, first of all, let's define two large categories. You can see them on this slide. At the top, you can see automation of back office processes, and below automation of customer-facing processes. Actually, here when I say back office processes, I also mean all the administrative processes that are being carried out in your front office, because in banks, the two can be very interconnected. Now, both of these can affect our employee experience and our customer experience as well. And actually, what is often overlooked, that these two then consequently affect each other. Now, if you look at this diagram, you can see that this creates an intricate web of interdependencies. Exactly because of these interdependencies, whenever we automate a process, it can create, maybe the good word for is ripple effects all across the customer experience that you are offering to your end users. It's really like pulling one string in a web just to figure out that the whole system is connected to it. Now, how these interdependencies can work could be hard to imagine. So I thought, instead of keeping this very abstract, let's look at an example. Let's say we have an imaginary investment advisory service where advisors create reports for the customers. After they created a report, they call the customer, or they call them in for a meeting, and they discuss it in person. Now, let's assume that we decide that this is a waste of time and we want to automate the process of creating reports. Now, the upside is quite obvious. Our advisors will be happier because they don't need to spend time with this seemingly routine task, and they will have more time explaining their options to the customers. So they don't need to bother with the report. Time has been freed up, and the result is better service to the clients. Through this, we first affected the employee experience, and through the employee experience, we affected the customer experience and improved it. Now, this is a very unambiguous example. Everyone would be very happy with such outcomes, so there is not much to think about. But not every indirect effect that can happen through the employee experience is so nice and useful. Let's look at a bit more dangerous example. If we automate the creation of these complex reports, that means that the creation of the reports will become kind of a black box process. It's not that it's a secret, but no one will look into it anymore. The reports will just come out of the machine or appear on the screen. Our advisors will never go through the process of building it themselves, doing the underlying analysis themselves. Now, this could create a situation where especially our newly hired advisors just won't have the same intimate understanding behind the numbers and recommendations. And how is this dangerous? This is dangerous because this could undermine the credibility in the eyes of the customers and consequently their trust in them. Now, this example is fully imaginary, but I think it hopefully helped to highlight what I mean by indirect effects. Now, this is a good moment to discuss the main message of my presentation. First of all, I would like to say it out loud and clear that automation is unavoidable. It is the present and it's clearly the future. Everyone who is listening to this presentation, you are already doing it, I'm pretty sure. And if you won't do it even better, your competition will do so, and they will become more efficient than you and more capable than you. Now, that's a fact, but how you do it really matters for the customer experience. Doing it with a human-focused, empathetic design thinking can really lead to enhanced customer experience. By doing it carelessly can really hurt your brand and your relation with your customers. I will try to illustrate what I mean by empathetic design thinking by going back to my previous example. How could we remedy this possible credibility issue? Well, while we are developing this first solution, we could simultaneously develop an employee-facing version of the report. And by what I mean by employee-facing version, a version that's more detailed, that explains all the logic behind the numbers, which shows the calculations, something that our employees can quickly go through and with their expertise quickly absorb this information. Now, this information would be clearly too complex for the customers. We don't want to give them such a report because they would just get confused, but it gives the required insight and understanding to our advisors that they feel that they can act as a credible expert and they feel confident in giving advice, and the customer will probably feel that. But to even realize that there is a need for this second report, we need to very carefully understand and think through how automation will affect the experience of our advisory service. So this is what I mean when I say empathetic design thinking. Now, after discussing these interdependencies, let's have a look at the possible upsides and downsides of automation in connection to the customer experience. Once again, just that everyone understands why I'm not talking about the upsides for the organization, which can be plenty. I mean, efficiency improvements, cost savings, is because here I'm purely focusing on how the experience is being affected on the customer side. Now, let's look at the upside first, and on the back office section. It usually means faster processes for the customer. It can also mean more attention if we think more about the front office administration. So, simple example, if a credit application is being assessed automatically, it will probably happen in a couple of minutes. If it's done manually, it can take up to days or even a week for the result to get back to the customer. As a customer, I almost always enjoy faster turnaround times, so this is almost always a great upside. Now, later we'll think about it, how great of an upside it is. If it's worth maybe other sacrifices, that really depends on what kind of customers you have and what is the task that we are talking about. And also, if you free up time from administration, your employees will have more time and attention and general headspace left for the customers. To imagine that more practically, if I'm sitting in a branch office and the clerk spends no time or little extra time with administration, she will have just much more time to talk to me and pay undistributed attention to my needs. Now, there is some danger or possible downside here. I'm always saying possible downside because I think these things can be mitigated, but it's important that we are aware of them. If processes are automated, things can start feeling a bit more rigid. Now I'm talking even about just the administrative processes. So it's not directly affecting the customer, but indirectly it will through the actions of our employee, because humans can bend processes if needed. An employee can bend the process to retain an angry customer, to remedy some mistake that they made, some unfairness that's perceived by the customer. So that they can bend processes a bit. Now, is it good or bad? That depends on the situation, but they can definitely do it. The machines don't do that. Whatever flow or whatever process wasn't designed, this just won't be possible. Software are not very flexible. And the real problem is that they don't allow employees to do it either. So instead of over-explaining this, just remember a situation when you wanted to take care of something in your personal life. You went into some organization and you started to explain them your problem, which seemed completely logical to you. Now, let's assume that an employee really wanted to help you with it, but the whole story just ended with him telling to you that, sorry, the IT system simply doesn't let me do that. It happened to me countless times in the last decade, and I every time felt very frustrated and treated a bit like a clog in the machine. So there is that danger. Now, if you look at now, if we start to look at the customer-facing processes, then we need to realize that automating these need to happen even more carefully, because these are, as the name tells it, in the face of our customers, and it directly affects their experience. So what are the usual upsides for the customers? First, transactional interactions can become much faster, and usually their availability increases. Today, very few customers want to go anymore to the branch office to simply transfer some money, so that's like a basic expectation today. Now, these situations also became predictable and fully reliable. The same thing happens every time. There is no element of surprise, no explanation, no talking needed. This can be a great thing in many situations, especially millennial customers very often prefer taking care of transactional things this way. Now, this immediately brings us to the possible danger. Predictable processes usually also mean inflexible and not really personalized processes. By personalized, here I mean tailored to our specific need in a specific situation. Obviously, we can create very smart processes with automatic personalization, but I'm pretty sure that machines won't be able to personalize for a while to the extent that humans can do in a real face-to-face or in a phone conversation. Furthermore, whenever we turn something into an automated process, we run the risk that it will feel more mechanic and less personal. And when I say mechanic and less personal, I mean something different than not personalized. I mean just the human element missing, the human warmth missing, that can give a lot to the image of a brand. So these are things to ponder every time we automate. I do believe that if we do automation smart, the upsides can dominate and the downsides can be mitigated. And in the rest of the presentation, I will share some ideas how to make sure our automation efforts actually enhance the customer experience instead of decreasing it. Now let's have a look at some dilemmas and their possible solutions. First of all, I wanted to talk about how everything that you modify in your services is changing that one single customer experience that your brand is conveying to a customer. Now, the whole customer experience that a person is having with your brand is built up from lots of little experience fragments. Instead of staying very theoretical, let's look at a few examples. These will be a few aspects of your activities that are all contributing to the customer experience. Let's start with your marketing. What ultra-personal care you promised in your TV ad? What messages those smiling sales representatives are conveying that you use in your online marketing? How do they make people feel? How well your chatbot helped your customer in a situation? Then in reality, when let's say the customer is visiting your branch office, how professional smiling are your sales representatives in reality? Is that matching up with the advertisement? Now looking at less fortunate things. why I couldn't see my account balance for a day due to some error in the mobile bank. Why was the account balance wrong for a day? How well targeted or annoying are the emails I get from your CRM? Do they feel really personal? Do they feel relevant to my needs? Now, all these things add up to a dynamically changing sum, and that perception in the customer's head, that is what we call the customer experience. And it's very subjective for every and each customer of yours. Now, I call this web of touch points, which I just described, your customer experience ecosystem. And financial institutions are usually very complex and very large companies. And because of that, they also have a very complex and very large customer experience ecosystem, because they are interfacing with their customer in lots of different ways and lots of different channels, talking about lots of different services. Why is this important for us? Because every touch point you automate is part of your customer experience ecosystem. So my point here is that I want you to remember, whenever you automate a touch point, think through how it will affect the other elements of your customer experience. If you convey the feeling of personal care in your ads, how will automated processes play with that? What kind of feeling will that leave your customers with? For example, how well your representatives sitting in the branch offices are trained in understanding what your digital processes are doing. Do they know what your chatbot tells to your customers? So like tying all these things together. Do your sales reps know exactly what kind of automatic offers your CRM system or your CRM campaigns are sending out? Will they be able to leverage this information in a conversation? I think this is a very hard question, and the best advice that I can give is that always map out how your whole customer experience ecosystem looks like, and whenever you are changing something, always think through how those holistic journeys of your customers will change as a result. So whenever you automate something, do it with careful service design, thinking holistically about your ecosystem. Now, moving forward, the next topic I wanted to touch on is sacrificing experience as a calculated move. Now, customer experience is usually being treated as a kind of a sacrosanct thing, especially when you listen to conference talks and read industry reports. But we all know that there is another very sacrosanct thing in everyday corporate life, and that's called the bottom line. So very often we actually automate in order to save cost, and we have a hint that it will hurt the customer experience a bit. Now, I wanted to show you this practical little framework to think through it whenever you do it. First question I think you have to ask from yourself, through the automation the automation move that I prepare to do, could I create a situation that will be a win-win for me and for my customers as well? And if the answer is yes, obviously there is nothing to ponder, you can go forward and it's a great thing. But if the answer is no, some hard questions have to be answered. First of all, how will it hurt the experience? How will it create possible ripple effects through my customer experience ecosystem? So first point is really to understand what is on the balance here. Now, who will mind it? Will it affect all my customers? Will it affect only a segment of them? How large will be the damage? Important point, can I mitigate it? Can I compensate it in maybe other parts of my customer experience ecosystem? A practical example could be if I save 50%, or I can decrease with 50% the load on my call center by introducing a more complex IVR or maybe a chatbot solution. Do I intend to use any of those freed up resources to provide even more personal care for those who actually end up speaking to a human operator? And the final question, does it worth it? How much do you really save, and is it decreasing the is this decreasing customer experience worth the sacrifice or not? Now, the lesson here is that it won't be always worthwhile to provide the best possible service. But when you decide to sacrifice some service quality as a result of automation, do so after clearly mapping out the consequences. And really do understand how it will affect your customer experience and how will it affect your bottom line. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is how situations differ and how situations differ in the eyes of different customers. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's important to understand that there are things which are transactional and there are questions which are personal. And the most important exercise that you are facing is to separate the two. Transactional is always clear-cut and it's very easy to turn into a process. Transactional interactions have very few emotional aspects and they are simply give and takes between the company and your customers. On the other hand, personal experiences are all about the human attention and trust in your expertise and in your colleagues' expertise. Personal experiences are also much more emotionally charged. They are about resolving anxiety, reaching ease of mind. Usually it's about something more important, like my retirement funds. Now, usually automation is excellent for the transactional, which requires a low-touch approach, and it's not the best thing to do for personal things, which usually require a high-touch, kind of a high-touch approach from your customer care or from your salespeople. Now, it doesn't mean that in personal matters or like more personal questions, automation can be useful, but it's very often not the only solution in itself. It can be more like a supporting solution, helping actual humans to do their work better. Now, the tricky thing that what is transactional and what is personal is not the same for each and every customer that you have. Actually, I think instead of going very abstract here, let's talk about this very simple little matrix that I created. So an average millennial customer probably feels very comfortable handling any kind of daily banking transaction through your automated interfaces, through your self-care interfaces. But when they reach the first larger investment decision in their life, it's pretty sure that they require human hand-holding. It's not that they couldn't push the buttons. They are very good usually in handling digital interfaces. They will figure it out. They just don't want to. They are anxious about it. They want a human to be there to give them advice. Now you have another segment, experienced investors, who face the exact same decision and they might value speed over attention. They absolutely don't need that human hand-holding. And for them, this is something very transactional, even if we are talking about hundreds of thousands of euros. As you can see, we talk about the exact same task, but different segments feel different about it. Now, my recommendation here is that do lots of customer research. You have to understand what is transactional and what is personal for each of your segments, and for each of your, and basically this needs to be done for every important interaction that can happen between you and your customers. And this customer research won't tell you what is the solution, but it will tell you who perceives something as transactional or as personal. Now, the solution can be a lot of different things. You can simply lead different customers to different channels, optimized exactly for their needs. You can build super advanced digital solutions that automatically align the experience with needs and the capabilities of the customers. Obviously, this is the hardest to do. Then you can also start educating some segments and kind of upskilling them to be able to bring some tasks from the personal to the transactional space. Now, to close this presentation, I actually wanted to give away that I intentionally made the choice between robots and humans sound like a binary one in this presentation. I felt so that this will be a good way to talk about this, to better highlight some dilemmas and decisions that we face during innovation. But in reality, this is not a binary choice at all. Actually, it is very far from it. The best solutions are born when machines and humans play on the same team, when we create integrated journeys that include both. Machines, as we know, are better in solving a lot of things, but when it comes to complex, messy problem solving, they are not even playing in the same league as humans do. This is quite easy to test with your phone or in your home. Ask anything from Siri or Alexa or from the Google Assistant, and you will quickly figure out that they are unable to help you with anything that's not a well-structured request, something that can be solved as predefined triggers and processes based on the response. On the other hand, ask them to count down 30 minutes or start some simple workflow, and they will do it with perfect efficiency and perfect reliability. Well, if they understand what you say, but let's assume that they do. And as the end result, right now I'm doing the cooking, I'm spicing the foods, and Alexa is counting down the 30 minutes, and that's a perfect team play between the two of us. Now, I would like to leave you with an analogy. In the 60s, like today I talk a lot about the 60s, the word cyborg started to get popular in the sci-fi literature, and the sci-fi, the idea of the cyborg is that humans will be augmented by robotic parts. Obviously, when this term was coined, no one expected that this augmentation will actually happen in the digital space. And if you look at how much technology expands our abilities today through software solutions, we can easily say that we became cyborgs. Living organisms whose abilities are drastically augmented by technology. Now, automation for better customer experience should exactly happen like this. You augment with technology what your employees can do for your customers. Now, interestingly, software seems to excel at the two ends of the spectrum. In case of very ambiguous, very simple tasks that are easy to turn into processes, and in a funny way, also at the other end of the spectrum, in case of extremely complex things where the amount of data and possible correlations go way beyond the analytical capabilities of human brain. Now, the goal is to marry these two in a way that both sides can use their unique advantages. Humans can use their empathy, their intuitive problem solving, while robots can use their precision and analytical capabilities. The magic really happens when both sides deal with what they are good in, and I think the bad customer experience is very often the result when the design switches up the roles and the wrong party starts to do the wrong part. So let's finish this presentation by a last example how I think this can be realized. I think the following journey will be very typical for the next 5 years in the financial sector. Let's assume that we introduce a robo-advisor, a mobile application that helps first-time investors with automatized advices to start investing their money. Let's say it could be a part of our mobile bank or a separate app, it doesn't matter. We start nurturing the investment clients of the future. Now, client relationships usually last very long in the financial sector, so we are not really in a hurry. Eventually, an algorithm, let's say it's machine learning, because everything sounds better when there is machine learning in it, starts picking up the signs that some of them are ready to take their game to the next level. Some of them are ready to graduate to more serious investment services. Now, at this point, an automatic sales engine starts to warm them up to the idea of using the services of an investment advisor. And eventually, a video call is organized seamlessly, hopefully within the app, not using some other software, breaking this whole beautiful journey. And hopefully, the customer is converted, levels up, starting to invest more seriously. Of course, our advisor should see or his decision history within the robo-advisor, for example, to know about that he prefers impact investment in, let's say, clean technology. Now, armed with this knowledge, it's much easier to create some kind of initial chemistry with the customer. Now, I firmly believe that such stories will dominate the next decade of financial services. And I would like to leave you with that idea. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you so much, Balázs, for your contribution to our Siili Talks. This time we still have 2 cyborgs left. So Jarkko and Kristian are preparing their parts. As we all know, we are in the midst of a global vaccination program, and if I recall right, Balázs, you have a situation that you actually have to go for your next shot now. Is it so?
Yeah, I'm just getting my second shot, and then hopefully after that I will be a free man walking around in the world like before.
Good luck with that one, and we are expecting ours soon as well. Hey, thank you so much, and have a good rest of the week. And we still have some 20 minutes left, so 10 minutes each. And now it's time to move the broadcast to Tampere and hear more about how we actually harness these opportunities Balázs just explained to us. Kristian, go ahead.
Thank you, Antti. Let's try to be concise. Is the presentation viewing at the moment? Just to confirm? Yes, super. All right, let's dive straight in then. So as in many industries, digitalization is shaping the future of your businesses, whether you're in everyday banking or financial advisory services or insurance claims handling. Digitalization is driving change to both your core business processes and the support processes around them. And that's affected the way business is done in many ways. Take, for example, the shift in banking from a branch network supported by digital channels to digital channels supported by a much more limited branch network. And that's affected how we handle customer interactions. Customer service has shifted from human interactions towards digital platforms and self-service channels. And as a result, many organizations are building fully automated customer service pipelines. And the ones that aren't, that focus on the human-to-human interaction as a differentiator or their competitive advantage, they've got much to gain from assisted automation that helps streamline the customer service reps' activities and also augment their work. So in many ways, providing financial services is becoming an increasingly digital experience. And in addition to the conventional role of automation as a tool to drive efficiency, process quality, and cut costs, automation today, as visualized here in this image, is often at the very heart of new digital experience and services. For example, enabling rapid engagement with your customers or making transactions more effortless for them, or driving increased revenue through more personalized service content for your users. And intelligent process automation has become a significant tool to empower your customer-facing operations. Take customer onboarding, for example. Who of you out there on the lines today would like to add €1 million in new revenue with a 20K investment? I certainly know I would in my business domain. And this isn't a marketing gimmick. It's just a well-timed, well-coinciding reality from last week when one of our leading consultants reached out to me and noted that he had an interesting new project starting where they're going to drive €1 million in new sales by building an automated onboarding process for corporate clients. And the enabler of this new revenue is immediate reach outs to the clients at the earliest stage possible in the onboarding process. In a virtual world, digital identity is key. Know your customer due diligence requirements have become major burdens. And many of these activities still involve a lot of repetitive manual work like processing documents and customer data in semi or unstructured formats with lots of room for automation. In response to the tightened Know Your Customer regulation, we recently built a client of ours, a virtual customer service team of over 30 software robots. This scalable automated workforce handled customer data management autonomously, and it could be scaled up and down to easily match actual demand, freeing up years and years of time for the customer service team and enabling them to focus on more valuable customer experience work. On the topics of compliance and risk management, several studies indicate that the compliance costs have almost doubled since pre-financial crisis levels. And in tackling these rising costs, we see intelligent automation playing a very key role, for example, by enabling more effective compliance reporting, reducing manual errors, mitigating risks, and of course, helping reduce the overall burden of compliance. So the potential is out there, but tapping into it requires having a well-functioning automation program, a recipe that sometimes may seem a bit complex, but actually in real life is quite simple. I know many of you listening in today have well-working automation programs in place, and we're privileged to work with some of the industry leaders in this area who have quite sophisticated approaches, who we've also been able to learn from along the automation journey. But not all programs are equal and deliver the same kind of impact. So here's kind of our takeaway for the day on that. Firstly, there needs to be clarity on the program's strategic drivers. In order to create wider impact, the automation program has to have alignment with strategy and broader digitalization objectives. Many programs claim to do this, but at the end of the day, they tend to focus on the two conventional benefit dimensions of automation as cost savings and improving process quality, which of course are extremely important. But the programs may lack further reaching objectives like driving improved customer engagement or digital excellence with automation. And the best performing programs have these clearly defined measurable drivers that then guide the value delivery process described here. And the way the program is implemented and governed in practice, addressing this operational model, also the required skills and toolkits, not the other way around where technology dictates your automation capabilities. And this combination then determines the kind of output your program will be able to deliver. For example, if driving a superior customer experience with automation is an objective of your automation program, there'll probably be a stronger focus on finding and discovering automation potential in your customer-facing operations than in the back office functions, depending, of course, on the scope and extent of the entire program. Secondly, steer out of those silos. The challenge with some RPA-driven automation initiatives is that they tend to generate benefits on an individual or team level. And teams benefit from optimizing their own tasks and activities, but that may cause problems downstream in other functions or phases of the end-to-end process. An example from customer-facing operations, again, kind of a theme today. You automate a customer interaction through a new digital service channel, but delivering the entire service end-to-end for the client, solving their problem, that affects several other functions and requires several actions by different parties in different phases in multiple back office systems. And the streamlined service at the front may end up causing more bottlenecks than solving the issue. Every program should include an end-to-end perspective, so have a focus on identifying the processes that create wider impact across these functions and silos. And this wider impact is then guided by the program's objectives, which aren't necessarily the same year in, year out. They may have different focus areas in different points of time, like improving customer engagement, then shifting on to enabling better service promises and their delivery, and then shifting on to driving up sales with automation through these new digital service channels. Thirdly, harness the right tools to discover automation opportunities. What kind of methods are you currently using to identify automation potential? How do you determine and prioritize which processes to automate? From a value creation perspective, these aren't trivial questions at all. A lot of bottom-up methods like crowdsourcing and of great new automation ideas and grassroots initiatives, they offer great potential for automation that affects employee experience, for example, and generates those individual or team level benefits. But in order to generate more significant organizational level benefits, top-down methods are needed. There should be a connection between the strategy drivers of the program and these process discovery methods that are used to find that automation potential. A data and fact-based approach that combines process mining, and new types of AI tools that monitor workflows and map processes from them automatically. They have a lot to offer in this area. And ideally, both these top-down and bottom-up approaches should be a part of your program and toolkit. The Automation Center of Excellence is also undergoing transformation. The organizations that are getting the most out of their process automation programs have realized that as the program evolves, so does the Center of Excellence model. It shifts from often initially being a single technology COE to a multi-technology and productivity-oriented COE. And the focus shifts from producing bots and technical automations to producing value and increasing productivity. And this means, to some extent, of course, measuring the Center of Excellence based on that and combining the governance of data science, AI, RPA, and business process management under that one Center of Excellence. And we see that some of the more progressive organizations that we're working with have already started undergoing this transaction, which will enable them to avoid stagnation at the plateau phase here. So sort of the running out of ideas and automation initiative drying up, and more relevantly, be better equipped to deliver impact with intelligent process automation. And last but not least, measure the impact of your automation program holistically. The analytics and reporting features provided by automation platforms out there today are often focused on the bottom right corner here, the technical metrics and functioning of automated processes. And this leaves building the right key performance indicators and measuring the total impact of your program up to you. So ask yourself, do you currently have the capability to measure how your program is delivering broader total impact and business benefits? Do you have the right metrics in place to measure the performance and effectiveness of your automation program itself? And in order to do that, you need to measure more than just cost savings or hours back to business or the technical operation and health of your automated workforce. When we measure the generated impact holistically, we're better equipped to communicate the total value and importance of intelligent process operations to different stakeholders across the organization and justify the euros we invest in it, which is increasingly difficult with more and more competing development stream for limited budgets. But if you're interested in hearing more and discussing about this topic, let's get in touch and have a chat. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Kristian, for that one. Really well combined slides there. And some of you might be wondering at the moment that it would be great to have those slides. And I have good news for you. You will have them in a few minutes. But before we send it to you, I want to introduce the third talk. As promised, whenever we talk about robotics, we need to talk about artificial intelligence. And now we're going to hear about it. Jarkko, your turn.
Thank you. Thanks, Antti, and thanks, Kristian. I'm going to keep it short today, as we have just a few minutes left. The speed of digital and the new players in the market and the legacy the current operators or providers have is really, let's say, making a pressure for the modernization, like how to enable both the automation or how to especially enable those digital experiences and customer experience Balázs described. There's of course plenty of ways to prepare the systems beneath within the enterprise to support these initiatives. Today I'm gonna quickly glance through 3 ideas what to consider to bring that value to the market, to the customers, and to the employees. The first one is what we already learned, and maybe just to wrap up that it's really important to design for the real needs. It's very rare that the new systems would require the previous requirements, or even the users of the previous systems to be the new users of the renewed ones. we can automate the stuff, certain parts of the processes, or something at large as well. The second point is that when thinking about preparing the enterprise systems for these movements, there's few alternatives to go. Plenty of organizations use the 6R approach, of course thinking about their personal situation, that what is the problem. There are far ends, like doing something minimal to support the stuff, or doing a big bang, replacing everything. What we have seen in many cases which works is a way to approach it in a gradual manner. And what it means in a real life is that we can probably in many cases pick up a certain vertical of the business where we can think and implement within that space, to also remove the large-scale dependencies on other systems. At the same time, we will need to prepare to think on the big picture and prepare the architecture like that. The third point, which is really interesting at the moment, to enable both these, let's say, automated customer experiences and the automation on the business processes side, is the how to incorporate the AI, and especially in a sustainable manner. We know that in last month, in April, the EU legislation actually finished the proposal for the Act on Artificial Intelligence. It's good to know that it touches also the financial sector and also the other, both public and the private sectors, from at least from three perspectives. The one is that the Act will ban certain kind of initiatives. Of course, those are the ones which act on a human or towards human in an unconscious manner, that there's no transparency or no knowledge on how I'm affected on the AI solution. The second level, which is tied to the, for example, use cases like credit scoring or such, very common on this specific sector. That kind of AI solutions are classified to be either on a high risk, medium risk, or low risk. The credit scoring, for example, belongs to the high risk area, where it's forced to be processed in a certain ways. So the solution needs to protect the personality or personal aims, and it's controlled same way as the EU GDPR does. The lower, let's say, level regulation then is targeted, for example, for the chatbots used within the customer service, and that kind of solutions will need to provide the transparency. How to approach then this and still continue to push forward the AI initiatives? There are few things. The trustworthiness can be built from different perspectives, and need to consider those perspectives. The key perspectives are, of course, the Udilian part, like how are we running the business, how are we providing the value for the customer. Then the second segment is the transparency. How do we explain the decision? How do we maybe explain the data which is used to make that decision, and how the system basically works? That's the aim, is to provide the understanding for the user how it works. The third point is then the ethical part, which basically covers also the societal pressure and things related. And the fourth, and not the least, is of course the compliance. The financial sector is used to handle, and there the regulation divides the impacts for providers, for the market surveillance parties and such, and also for the end users. We at Siili, we are partnering with a group of companies, 2 universities and organizations like Finnish Tax Administration to plan on how this kind of governance and auditing models needs to be done and taken care, and really eager to talk on these topics in the later or after the webinar. Thanks.
Good. That was a summarized package. We're gonna send you a bit more extensive one after the webinar. Now, just to put in a really quick summary, whether you have thoughts on automation experience, how it will how it will affect your customer experience, or you have thoughts regarding to how to orchestrate automation, or how to responsibly and sustainably use the artificial intelligence connected to these initiatives, I guess we are the right partner to talk with. So we're going to send you also information on how to reach us, and of course we make sure that we try to reach you. Thank you for watching the Siili Talks, and have a great afternoon, perhaps a commercial one. Thank you.